There's a moment you've probably experienced before. You're doing okay, not perfect, but okay, breathing, moving through the day, and then something happens. A photo, a conversation, a quick glimpse into someone else's life, and in less than a second, before you decide anything, before you even understand what's happening, something changes inside your body. It doesn't start with a thought. It starts in your chest, a slight tightening, almost subtle, like someone pressed a button you didn't even know existed. Your shoulders lift a little, your breathing gets shallow, your jaw closes with a soft pressure, almost gentle in its cruelty, and only after that, a few seconds later, the mind arrives and starts working. He's already there, he already has it. Why am I still here? But notice something, your body reacted first. Before the story you told yourself, before the comparison turned into words, before any conclusion, your internal system had already fired, already put you on alert, already decided there was danger, and the danger had the face of someone else doing well. Stay with me in this video. Take it slowly, because by the end, this will make sense in your body in a way no quick explanation ever really has. I'm not going to give you a list of tips today. I'm not going to tell you, stop using social media or focus on your own goal. You've heard that before. You've probably tried it, and you probably noticed it works for a few days, sometimes a few hours. And then the body drifts right back to the same place. Because the problem isn't the other person's behavior. It never was. The real issue is the reaction your body has to the other person. And that reaction has a history, a long one, something learned over many years, something that actually makes perfect sense once you understand where it came from. That's what we're going to talk about today. But slowly. Some things only land when they're given time. I want to introduce you to someone. His name is Felipe. He's 34, works in digital marketing, lives alone in a small apartment he decorated himself carefully. He has friends, he has projects, he has good days where he feels capable, present, whole. And then there are Monday mornings. Felipe's Monday mornings have a certain texture. He wakes up, and before he's even fully opened his eyes, something is already happening in his body. A low tension, almost invisible, sitting somewhere between his stomach and the center of his chest. It's not pain. It's not exactly anxiety, at least not the kind he can name. It's more like weight, a kind of anticipated weight. He lies there for a few minutes, staring at the ceiling. His breathing is short, not because he can't get air, but because, without realizing it, he's only breathing halfway in. His chest rises and falls a little faster than it needs to. His feet are slightly tense, his toes almost curled, like his body is preparing to run before the day has even started. He picks up his phone. The movement happens automatically. His hand moves before the decision. His eyes are still half closed from the light when the screen is already glowing, the app already open, the feed already moving, and then he stops. A photo, an old college friend he hasn't seen in years, smiling at an event, surrounded by people. There's a new title on his profile. A promotion, something visible, public, easy to photograph. Felipe looks at the photo for maybe 3 seconds, and his chest tightens, not gradually, quickly, as if the pressure was already there waiting, and the photo was just the password that released it. He sets the phone down, gets up, walks to the kitchen, puts water on to boil. And during all of this, during these small, ordinary movements, there's a quiet narration happening somewhere inside him. Not loud, not dramatic, almost like a murmur. He's already there. You're still in the same place. What are you even doing with your life? Felipe stirs the coffee grounds, grabs a mug, feels the warmth of the steam rising in the small kitchen, and still, the tightness in his chest stays. His shoulders are still slightly raised. His jaw still carries that pressure, the pressure of someone holding themselves together, without really knowing why. Have you ever felt something like that? It doesn't have to be in the morning. It doesn't have to be a college friend. Maybe it happened in the middle of a conversation. Maybe during a family lunch, when someone casually mentioned what a cousin is doing now. Maybe in a quiet moment alone, looking at a screen. The trigger changes. The body responds the same way. That tightness in the chest, that breathing that suddenly becomes shallow, that tension in the shoulders that you didn't ask for, didn't approve, it just appeared. If this feels familiar to you, I want you to know something before we go any further. You're not broken. This was learned. This response system was built over many years, many situations, many moments where your body had to register something important in order to survive, and it registered it. Carefully, faithfully. The problem is, the record stayed. And the world changed. The danger that once existed isn't the same danger anymore, but the body still reacts as if it is. Felipe spends the rest of the Monday morning trying to work. He opens his computer, answers a few emails, starts a task that's been sitting there for 3 days, but something about the quality of his attention today is different. Something keeps slipping. A lightness that used to be there is gone. A presence that isn't fully here. He reads the same paragraph 4 times, not because it's difficult. The text is simple, familiar, part of his field. But his eyes move across the words without them landing. His mind is technically here, but it's listening somewhere else. Listening to that low murmur that started in the kitchen and hasn't stopped. Are you okay? Are you moving forward? Are you where you're supposed to be? Around 11 in the morning, he goes to the bathroom. He glances at himself in the mirror for a second. A quick look, almost accidental. And in that second, without planning it, a thought appears. One he quickly pushes away so he doesn't have to stay with it. Maybe some people were born for this, and some people weren't. He washes his hands, goes back to his desk. His shoulders are still raised, his jaw is still tight, his breathing is still stopping halfway. And the most curious thing, the detail that matters more than anything else in this story, is that Felipe doesn't notice any of it. He doesn't notice the tension in his shoulders. He doesn't notice the short breathing. He doesn't notice his jaw tightening. He doesn't notice the pattern that started at 6 in the morning with a single photo and is still running, still active, still coloring everything he sees and feels and thinks. To him, the day just feels heavy. He just can't seem to focus. He's just feeling a little down today. But the body knows something else. The body knows it's on alert, that it received a signal, that it registered a threat. And since then, it's been working, quietly, tirelessly, trying to protect Felipe from something his conscious mind can't even clearly name. What Felipe's body is doing has a simple name. I'm not going to use a technical term. It doesn't need one. Just call it an alarm. It's a system every human being has. A system that, over the course of Felipe's life, learned which signals mean danger. And when those signals appear, it fires. It prepares the body. Shoulders lift, breathing shortens, the jaw tightens, attention turns toward the threat. The problem isn't that the alarm exists. The problem is what the alarm learned to recognize as danger. For Felipe, over many years, through many moments, we'll understand a little better soon. His body learned something very specific. It learned that when someone around him moves forward, when someone achieves something, when someone is recognized, that means something about Felipe, not about that person, about him. It learned that other people's success is a mirror, and sometimes that mirror shows something painful. So every time the mirror appears, every photo, every conversation, every new title on someone's profile, the alarm fires. Shoulders lift, breathing gets short, the jaw tightens, before the thought, before the story, before any decision. Can you notice where this lives in your body? It doesn't have to be today. It doesn't even have to be recent. But there's probably a physical place where this sensation tends to show up for you, a place you already know, even if you've never named it. Your chest, your shoulders, your throat, your stomach. Stay with that for a moment, because in the next part, we're going to go deeper into Felipe's story, to the exact moment when this alarm was first installed. Felipe was 11 years old when he learned it. He didn't learn it in a conversation. No one sat next to him and explained how the world works. He learned it the way most people learn the most important things in life, without realizing it, in the middle of an ordinary moment, a moment that seemed small, but that his body recorded as enormous. It was a Thursday afternoon. He had just come home from school with a test in his backpack. Math. He had done well. Not perfect, but well. A grade he was genuinely proud of. He had studied. He had understood the material. He had felt that specific satisfaction of working through something and finally reaching the answer. He walked into the house holding the test. His mom was in the kitchen. His dad was sitting in the living room reading the newspaper. And Felipe, 11 years old, with that warm feeling in his chest that comes from wanting to be seen, walked into the living room first. "Dad, look at my grade." His father looked at the paper, nodded, and then said in a completely neutral voice, no cruelty in it, no intention to hurt, "Mrs. Sonia's son got 100. Silent. Felipe stood there holding the test. His father had already gone back to the newspaper, and Felipe, 11 years old, chest open, waiting to be seen, felt something happen in his body that he had no words for. The warmth in his chest suddenly cool. His shoulders dropped. Something caught in his throat. Not quite tears, but something that stayed there, like a word that never came out. He folded the test, put it back in his backpack, and went to his room, and his body kept it, not consciously. Felipe didn't decide to store that moment. He didn't create an organized memory with a title and a date, but his internal system, the one that learns what hurts, what's dangerous, what needs attention, recorded it with surgical precision. Your success has relative value. Its real value depends on what someone else did. That record didn't stay in his thoughts. It stayed in his body. A week passed, then a month, then a year. Felipe grew up. Life kept happening. Other moments came, some good, some difficult, some the mind kept, and others it let go. But the body kept the record. And over the years, the system kept refining itself. Every time someone around him achieved something and Felipe felt that cooling in his chest, the record went a little deeper. Every time comparison appeared at a family gathering, in a classroom, in a group of friends, and his body responded with that same tension, the alarm became a little more calibrated, until eventually it reached a point where the alarm didn't even need an explicit comparison anymore. It was enough to see someone doing well, enough to see someone moving forward, enough to see a photo, a title, a visible achievement. The body already knew what to do. Shoulders lift, breathing shortens, the jaw tightens, the chest closes, and the mind, a few seconds later, arrives to help, bringing the story, bringing the comparison, bringing the list of everything Felipe hasn't done yet, hasn't achieved yet, hasn't become yet. Felipe is 34 now. His father never knew that Thursday afternoons stayed in his son's body for more than 2 decades. He probably doesn't even remember the moment. And if you asked him today, he would likely say he always supported his son, that he always wanted the best for him, and he'd be telling the truth, at least the truth as he understood love back then, with the tools he had. This isn't about blame. It never is. It's about what a child's body learns when certain messages repeat over time. It's about how an internal system trying to protect builds a pattern that makes perfect sense for surviving childhood, but becomes heavier and heavier in adult life. Felipe isn't stuck because he's weak. Felipe is stuck because he learned, and he learned well. The system that learned is doing exactly what it was programmed to do. The problem is that the program was written for a world that doesn't exist anymore. On Monday afternoon, Felipe closes his laptop earlier than he planned. He didn't finish what he needed to. His concentration never really came back. There's that strange feeling of having worked all day and having very little to show for it. And that feeling carries extra weight when the alarm has been running since the morning. He walks over to the window, looks down at the street. A woman is pushing a stroller. A man is talking on the phone with a wide smile. 2 teenagers are sitting on a bench laughing at something on a screen. Felipe watches all of it with a strange distance, as if there's glass between him and the world outside, as if the people down there are tuned to a frequency he just can't quite reach today. His shoulders are still raised. He doesn't notice. His breathing is still shallow, reaching only the upper part of his chest, never dropping into the abdomen, never completing the cycle his body would need to actually release what it's holding. He doesn't notice that either. And his jaw, that soft but constant pressure, is still there. It's been there since the morning, almost 5 hours now, with that tension sitting in his face. The only moment it eased a little was when he had lunch, and even then, it came right back. He thinks, I need to be more motivated. He thinks, I need to stop comparing myself. He thinks, tomorrow will be different, and those thoughts are well-intentioned, they're sincere, but they're coming from the wrong place. They're coming from the mind, trying to solve something that's happening in the body, and the mind doesn't have direct access to the alarm. The mind can create stories about the alarm. It can try to convince the alarm that there's no danger. It can shout rational instructions at a system that doesn't speak the language of reason. But it can't turn the alarm off that way, because the alarm wasn't turned on by a thought, and it won't be turned off by a thought. There's a part of Felipe that learned that danger looks like someone else doing well. That part isn't bad. It isn't defective. It's not something that needs to be ripped out, destroyed, or forced into silence. It's a part that learned how to survive. For years it was useful, in moments when comparison actually signaled something important. In moments when paying attention to what others were doing helped Felipe adjust, recalibrate, keep up in environments that sometimes punished people who fell behind. That part was loyal, diligent. It worked non-stop, but it got stuck in a time that has already passed. It kept responding to a danger that had the shape of a Thursday afternoon at 11 years old, a folded test inside a backpack, and a father who had no idea what he had just done. That part has a name. And when something has a name, it loses some of its power. The shadow has a name, and when it has a name, it softens. Let's call it the insufficient one. Not as an insult, not as a diagnosis, just as a description of the belief this system carries. The belief that when someone around Felipe succeeds, it proves something about him. That he isn't enough, not good enough, not capable enough, not far enough ahead. The insufficient one isn't Felipe, it's a part of him. A part that learned to appear in specific moments with a specific job, to protect him from what he felt on that Thursday afternoon, to protect him from holding out an achievement and not being seen, to protect him from wanting recognition and receiving a mirror that shows someone else instead. That protection has a cost. The cost is peace. Can you recognize the insufficient one in yourself? It may not have the same name, it may not come from the same moment, but there's probably a version of that part in you too, a part that learned that someone else's progress says something about you, a part that uses other people's lives as a ruler to measure your own. If that part exists in you, there's something important to understand. It isn't your enemy, it's just stuck. And we're going to talk about how to start loosening it. There's something Felipe tried for years. He tried to stop. He tried, consciously, deliberately, with all the willpower he had, to simply stop comparing himself. He tried closing the app faster. He tried avoiding certain profiles. He tried reminding himself every time that tightness appeared in his chest that comparison is unfair, that everyone has their own timing, that someone else's life isn't the standard for his. He repeated those phrases to himself hundreds of times, and it worked. For a moment, it worked. The mind accepted the argument, agreed with the logic, nodded with rational approval, and then a few minutes later, sometimes a few seconds later, his chest tightened again, because Felipe was doing what almost everyone does when they realize an alarm inside them won't stop ringing. He was trying to fight the alarm, and fighting a fire alarm doesn't put out the fire, it just exhausts the person fighting it. Think about it for a moment. Imagine a small child in a dark room, crying because they're afraid. You can walk into that room and tell them to be quiet. You can argue that there's no reason to be afraid. You can list every rational reason why the dark isn't dangerous. They'll keep crying, not because they're stubborn, not because they don't understand logic, but because what they need isn't an argument. What they need is someone to come closer, someone to sit beside them, someone to say, without hurry, without judgment, I'm here. I know it feels scary. I'm not going anywhere. Felipe's alarm works the same way. Every time he tried to suppress the comparison, every time he tried to force positive thinking over the tightness in his chest, every time he tried to convince his internal system that it was wrong, the system responded the only way it knows how when it feels threatened. It fired louder, because for the alarm, suppression looks like more evidence that something is wrong. If you're trying to silence me, the danger must be real. If you're fighting me this hard, there must be something here that needs protection. And so the cycle forms. The alarm fires. Felipe tries to suppress it. The alarm fires louder. Felipe gets tired of fighting. The alarm interprets the exhaustion as confirmation. And the next Monday morning, Felipe wakes up again with raised shoulders and shallow breathing before he even touches his phone. That's the central trap. It's not comparison itself. It's the war against comparison that slowly drains the system from the inside. The shift isn't about silencing the insufficient one. The shift begins when Felipe stops treating the insufficient one like an enemy, because the insufficient one isn't an intruder. It's a part that grew inside him, built slowly, brick by brick, through years of moments like that Thursday afternoon. A part that learned emotional survival meant staying alert, constantly measuring, constantly calculating the distance between Felipe and everyone else. That part genuinely believes it's saving him. And the paradox is this: the more Felipe fights it, the more convinced it becomes that the danger is real, and the harder it works to protect him. The way out isn't force. It's curiosity. It's moving closer to the insufficient one, not to destroy it, not to argue with it, but to ask with real gentleness, what are you trying to protect me from feeling? And when the answer comes, it's almost always the same. It isn't fear of failure. It isn't fear of not having money or status or recognition. It's the fear of not being loved if you're not enough. It's that 11-year-old boy holding the test in his hand, learning in the silence of a living room that love has conditions, that recognition is comparative, that simply existing isn't enough, that you have to exist better than someone else to be seen. That's what the insufficient one is protecting, not ambition, a wound. And once you see that, the question changes. It's no longer, how do I stop comparing myself? It becomes, how do I start giving that part what it never received? There's an archetype that lives on the other side of the insufficient one, not its perfect opposite, not someone who never feels that tightness in the chest, who never looks at someone else's life and feels a flash of something painful. That perfect person doesn't exist, and if they did, they wouldn't be useful as a reference. The archetype on the other side is the present one. The present one isn't someone who never compares. It's someone who notices when comparison begins, and for a few seconds can bring attention back to their own body, back to their breathing, back to the moment they're actually living. The present one has visible flaws. Sometimes they open someone's profile and feel the tightness. Sometimes they stare at someone else's success a little too long. Sometimes the alarm fires and the shoulders rise before any conscious decision. But the present one has a resource the insufficient one never developed. They can notice when the alarm goes off. They can name what's happening in the body without becoming it. They can say quietly, internally, "Ah, the alarm is active. The insufficient one showed up. My chest feels tight. My shoulders are raised. This is my system doing what it learned to do." And in that small space between the alarm and the fusion with it, something appears that wasn't there before. Choice. Not the choice to stop feeling. Feeling is involuntary. Trying not to feel is exactly the trap we've already seen. But the choice of what to do with what you're feeling. The choice to take a deeper breath before continuing to scroll. The choice to put the phone down for 2 minutes and notice what your body is carrying. The choice not to feed the story the insufficient one is trying to tell. That choice doesn't come from a heroic decision. It comes from training. Small, specific training. Done in the body, not in the mind. 30 days. Not 30 days of total transformation, not 30 days where the insufficient one disappears and the present one fully takes over. That's not what happens, and promising that would be dishonest. 30 days of 3 small movements done in the body, so right when the alarm fires. The first movement is lowering the volume, not silencing, not suppressing, lowering. When the tightness appears in your chest, when the photo shows up, when the comparison begins, when the alarm fires, the first gesture isn't mental, it's physical, a long, deliberate exhale, longer than the inhale. Let the air leave completely before letting it come back in. That's it. Not a positive thought, not an affirmation, an exhale, because the body doesn't leave alert mode through intellectual persuasion. It leaves through physical signal, and a long exhale is one of the clearest signals you can send to the nervous system that says, the danger has passed. You can rest. The smallest step changes everything, and that step, that 6, 8, 10-second exhale, is smaller than almost any behavior change you've tried before, smaller than deleting apps, smaller than avoiding content, smaller than writing new goals in a notebook. And it's more direct because it goes straight to where the problem actually lives, in the body. The second movement is mapping the route, not during the alarm, after, when the intensity has softened a little, when the chest isn't as tight, when you have just enough distance to observe what happened. Take a piece of paper, not an app, paper, and write 3 lines, not an analysis, not an essay. 3 simple lines, always in the same format. First line, what happened in my body before the thought? Not what you thought, what you felt physically, where the tension was, what changed in your breathing, what happened in your shoulders, your jaw, your stomach. Second line, what did the alarm decide this meant about me, not about the other person, about you? What automatic conclusion appeared? What story the insufficient one told? Third line, when does this story feel like it's from? It doesn't need to be precise. It doesn't have to be a specific memory. It can be a time period, childhood, adolescence, that difficult phase. It can be a figure, a parent, a teacher, a group of friends. It doesn't need certainty, just direction. Those 3 lines written regularly over 30 days do something no mental resolution can do. They create distance between you and the alarm. Because when you can write about the alarm, you're no longer the alarm. You're someone observing it. And that observer position, even if it's small, even if it feels unstable at first, is where the present one begins to take shape. The third movement is the most delicate. It's acting like the present one before you feel like the present one. That sounds contradictory, almost dishonest, like pretending to be something you're not. But there's a difference between pretending and practicing. Pretending hides what you feel. Practicing moves anyway, while the feeling is still arriving. A musician learning a difficult piece doesn't wait to feel the music before playing the notes. They play the notes again and again, with patience, with attention, until the notes begin creating the music by themselves, until the body learns the path and starts walking it with less effort. The third movement works the same way. In practice, it looks like this. The alarm fires. The photo appears. Your chest tightens. Your shoulders lift. First movement, the long exhale. Let the air leave completely. Pause. Let the air return. Maybe repeat once. Second movement will come later. The 3 lines on paper. But now, in this moment, the third movement is a question, a simple question asked internally, not with pressure, not with motivation, with genuine curiosity. What was I doing before this appeared that actually mattered to me? Not what you should be doing, not what you planned to do. What was happening right before the alarm fired, that was genuinely yours. A project, a conversation, a thought that was forming, a task that was slowly moving forward, and then, without force, without urgency, return to it. Not because comparison has been solved, not because the insufficient one has been convinced it's wrong, but because the present one doesn't need the alarm to be silent in order to act. The present one can act while the alarm is active, because it understands the alarm isn't reality. It's an echo of a reality that already passed. Felipe practiced these 3 movements for a few weeks. The first times felt strained. The exhale felt mechanical. The 3 lines felt empty, like a school exercise he didn't quite understand. The question about what he was doing before felt almost naive compared to the weight he was feeling, but he kept going. And during the 3rd week, something small happened that he almost missed. One Monday morning, not very different from the others, same kitchen, same coffee, same routine. He picked up his phone, opened the feed, and saw someone else's achievement. His chest tightened, his shoulders rose, his breathing shortened, and then, without consciously deciding to do it, the exhale came. Long, slow, complete. And in the space that exhale created, that small opening between the alarm and the fusion with it, Felipe noticed something he had never noticed before. He was hungry, literally. His stomach wanted breakfast. His body was here, in this morning, in this kitchen, with simple, real needs that had nothing to do with what someone else had accomplished. He set the phone down on the table. He made the coffee, drank it, standing by the window, no phone in his hand, just the street outside, morning light moving slowly across the buildings, and his shoulders, for the first time in a long while on a Monday morning, lowered a little, not completely, not dramatically, just a little, but a little. in this context, after years of tension that started before the day even began, is enormous. I'm not telling you that 30 days will erase the insufficient one. They won't. The insufficient one was built over decades. Its roots go deep. There are memories the body stored with a care that no 30-day practice can fully dissolve. But 30 days can create something that wasn't there before. They can create space. That second between the alarm and the fusion. That moment when you can notice the alarm is active before it sweeps you away. That small place, almost invisible at first, where the present one begins to live inside you. And once that space exists, it doesn't disappear. It may feel smaller on hard days. It may seem gone when life really presses in. But once the nervous system learns, there is another possibility besides alarm and fusion. It never fully forgets. It's like learning how to swim. You can stay out of the water for years, but the body remembers the movement. The shadow has a name, and once something has a name, it loses some of its power. Now the insufficient one has a name, and that changes the relationship, not erasing it, changing it, because the next time the insufficient one appears, and it will, maybe tomorrow, maybe the next time you open your phone, you'll have an option that wasn't there before. You'll be able to say quietly inside yourself, it's you. I know why you're here. I know what you're trying to do. Thank you for the protection. I don't need it right now. Not a battle, a recognition, then the exhale, and then the return to what's actually yours. That's why this channel exists. To sit beside what's difficult without trying to fix it too quickly. To give a name to what has been nameless. To remind you that you're not broken, that what you feel makes sense, that it was learned, that it once had a purpose, and that, with time and attention, it can begin to be rewritten, not from the neck up, from the whole body. If something in this video touched a place you've been carrying for a long time, you don't have to do anything with it right now. Just let it settle. The body knows what to do with what's true, and if you ever want to share where this shows up for you, what situation, what moment, what shape the insufficient one takes in your life, this space is here for that too. Not to fix it, just to recognize it together. I'll see you in the next video.